Hello and welcome to the 12 Months to Marathon podcast with me, John Hill, the running podcast for the over 35s with Marathon Dreams. Episode 81. I'm joined by a very special guest today. I'm joined by Steve Till. Now, I'm going to give Steve a little bit of a brief introduction before I get into the conversation with Steve. So this is going to be a fascinating conversation just based on Steve's experience. And the good thing as well is that Steve is in a fairly similar place to me in the sense of his message and what he does tends to resonate more with the over 35s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, which is cool. So that'll be useful for me as well, as I'm sure I'm going to learn something. So I'm going to have to read Steve's bio because there's quite a bit on there, but I'll just give you the headline level of what Steve's done, and then we'll sort of get into the meat and potatoes, and we'll let Steve do that. So Steve has competed in 100-kilometer and 24-hour events for his country. He's won medals at national championships, and here's the really cool bits. He's run over 100 marathons, over 500 park runs, and he's a centurion, which means he's walked 100 miles in less than 24 hours. He's also the author of a book called The Run of Life, which I will pop in the description for you, so you can check that out and have a look at that as well if you wish to do so. So how are you this morning, Steve?
I'm very well, thank you, John. Yeah, very nice to be here. How are you?
Good. I'm very well, thank you. Thank you very much for asking. So if you don't mind, I'd love to know your running journey, Steve. So as much detail as you want to go into, the floor is yours. So tell me a little bit about your running journey.
Okay, well, stop me when you've heard enough. I can pinpoint exactly when I started running. It was the 10th of August, 1971. I was watching the European Athletics Championships, which were being televised live from Helsinki.
Mm-hmm.
Dave Bedford, who some of your listeners will know, Dave Bedford, who set a world record in the 10,000 meters in 1973, he led for most of that European 10,000 meters before being overtaken by Juha Veitainen and Jürgen Haase. Juha Veitainen of Finland, Jürgen Haase of East Germany in the last lap. They ran that last lap in 53 seconds. Now, I sat watching that in black and white, I think, at the time, and it was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. I'd watched the World Cup, the Football World Cup the year before, and that was brilliant with, Pele and everybody. But this was something else. And that last lap in 53 seconds, the dynamism, the athleticism, the endurance, the speed was just fantastic. And I just wanted to be part of that. And I sat there for a long time, and then I did the only thing that made any sense to me. I went outside and I ran up and down the hill outside our house. And I ran up and down the hill until I kind of thought I was a little bit nearer to Veitainen and Haase than I had been before. Obviously, only a millimetre or so nearer them. But I wanted to be part of their world, their world of endurance and speed and pain. And it was just absolutely fascinating to me. So that was the spark. That was where I started. That is what lit the fire in me to want to be a runner and to want to be the best runner I could possibly be. So I carried on running. I would run most evenings. I'd run round the back garden. I'd run up and down the hill. And then 1971 turned into 1972 Olympic year, Munich Olympics. I thought I must be in with a chance of a medal here. And in the middle of all this came school sports day. And I entered the 1500 meters, of course, expecting to win by a long way. And I came last. And it was a little bit of a wake-up call. I thought my Olympic dreams may be a little bit too ambitious at that point. I was 14 years old, so obviously these were the ridiculous dreams of a young teenager. But even that school sports day didn't kill the fire, didn't put the passion out, didn't stop me having the faith that one day I could do something in running. And so I carried on, and I came last in university cross-country races. But gradually, I mean, when you're running 100 miles a week, it will have an effect, as I tell the athletes that I coach. Yeah. There is a cause and effect. And long distance running is one of those sports where you can make up with hard work for a lack of talent. And I had pretty much no talent for running. I had very little talent in my body. What the talent that I had was in my head and in my heart, my desire, my determination to try and get better. So as I say, running 100 miles a week, by the end of university, I was sort of beating some of the people who had beaten me in the first 2 years. And then starting work moved me into a whole new dimension. I was able to train a lot harder, do all the quality sessions, and that launched me into the running journey that you have so well outlined in terms of the marathons and the national medals and all of that.
Awesome. So where did we so bridge from there
Yep.
to like this amazing CV, as it were? So what I'm interested in is like you started work, you said you started doing more quality work, more
Yeah.
speed work, that sort of thing. Talk to me about that gap. So we've gone from here and then all of a sudden we are, so what does that look like in terms of particularly the marathon journey first off?
Yeah. I mean, I was fortunate in that um my career, my work fitted in with my running. So I lived in Croydon, I worked in London. So every morning I'd get the train from North Junction to London Bridge, run across London. I run about 5 or 6 miles in the morning, and most evenings I'd run all the way back, about
Right.
11 miles. And
Right.
then woven into that was speed work. So Tuesday nights I'd always do speed work on the way back. Thursdays I usually go to the track. Obviously Sundays I do a long run. So there's much more quality. Whereas at university I just sort of ran as and when I could, and I did a lot of race walking, which I did from when I started university up to about 1983, and then after 83, 84, I got serious about the marathon training. So that's when my times at 5K, 10K, half marathon, and marathon really started to come down.
Right.
Up to then, I'd been mixing running and race walking a bit. So and obviously that dilutes the effect of how you train for either or the results you get from in either sphere.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I set all my marathon and sub-marathon personal bests in 85, 86, 87. Um, yeah, and they were good personal bests. They were 16 minutes, 33 minutes, 1:11 for a half, 2:36 for a marathon. So I would win the odd local race. But I'd reached the plateau. I was running 120 miles a week, maybe some weeks, and I was doing all that speed with all those long runs. But I seemed to have, reached as far as I could get. And then my then wife and I went around the world in 1991, 92, and we had a lot of time to think. And I kind of thought, what do I want to do? I love my running. I think I could do more. I think I could, um, reach further than I have already. And I started to think about ultra distance running, or get a bit more serious about ultra distance running. I'd done some ultras, um, and I found that the further the race went on, the nearer the front of the race I got. Um, Part of the reason was, of course, that you don't find many people doing 100-mile races or 24-hour races.
Mm.
Um, but I had the passion to be able to train quite professionally for them. So I would go out at the weekend and I'd run 30, 40, 50 miles each day on the Saturday and the Sunday. So I would train really hard, and that obviously gives you the results. It's still hard. It's almost impossible to train for a 24-hour race.
Mm.
But that was the decision I made as we were going around the world in 1991, 92. So come 93, I entered the national 100-kilometer championships, came in the top 10. By 94, I'd improved even more. So I got a couple of bronze medals in the national championships, the national 100K and the national 24 hours. So I was getting on the radar of the GB selectors then. And actually, I should go back, because when I was thinking about ultra distance running, I thought, well, what do I want to achieve? I had already done a couple of decent ultras, but I thought, what would real success look like? And I always think with anybody who runs, if you get a target, if you get the right target, then that can take you an awful long way.
Mm.
And the right target for me, I suddenly realized there were European and World Championships at 100K and 24 hours. And I thought, wow, if I could get a Great Britain vest, that I could, I could die happy if I if I got one of those. That would be the ultimate. I was never going to get to the Olympic Games. I was never going to get a gold medal in the Olympic Games or the European Championships or the Commonwealth Games or anything like that. But these ultra championships at European and world level, I thought if I could just get a GB vest, that would be fantastic. And that was the carrot. In some ways, that made the training easier. I'd go out on a Saturday morning to run, 50 miles. It was hard. I mean, obviously, it was very hard, but there was never any doubt in my mind that I was going to do it, because the target there, the that GB vest that I could see out there in front of me, if I did all this work and and got the results, then it was possible that I could get there.
Mm.
And so that made me do all these really long runs, really long training runs.
Mm. Where did so where did that come from? So you saw sort of Dave Bedford back in sort of Dave Bedford back in 71. Where did I want to go faster? And then because I always say with people, I often say you reach a fork in the road of running, and people normally go, right, I want to get faster or I want to go further.
Yeah.
It's normally and some people could do both, granted, but most people have that sort of fork where they go, do I want to do 5K, 10K, half marathon, marathon, ultra, or do they go, I just want to get faster over 5K? So what was it for you then that took you from that 71, I want to get into running, to doing these incredible things and keep pushing yourself? Or
I, I
where did that come from is the better question, Steve. Where did that was that how you were raised, that sort of thing? Where did that come from?
I think I've always been good at sticking at things,
Right.
and so that's always been a sort of an underlying trait. I think I knew. I mean, I bashed away at 5K, and I did 16:30, 16:16, 16:20, 16:40, and I thought I'm bashing my head against a brick wall. Same with
Right.
10K. I did 33 something, probably 10 times. And I nearly got under 33, but not quite. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you always think you've got another personal best in you. I remember when I did my 1:11 half marathon, which is a big chunk off my personal best at the time. I thought, oh, a bit more training, a bit more speed. Well, I'll get under 1:10. Never did, because things get in the way. I got injured actually that year, and so that delayed things a bit. So I think there was a sense that, okay, my body, my results are telling me that I've reached about as far as I could. I mean, if I'd screwed myself up and done agonizing speed sessions 3 times a week, perhaps I could have got a minute faster at 5K and 10K, but that was never going to get me, a
Mm.
GB vest. Whereas I thought, okay, the ultra distance race is the last refuge of the untalented runner, and that was definitely me.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, yeah, here is somewhere I can make up with real hard work for a lack of talent. I mean, who has a real talent for ultra distance running? It's very difficult to define. If anyone starts out their running career with the ability to run 100 miles in 8-minute miles or 7-minute miles, I mean, Don Ritchie, let's say, might be one you would point to as who seemed to be a natural and take to it more readily than the rest of us. But yeah, I thought, okay, I can put in the work. And I suppose it was partly, okay, I can't do any more at the lesser distances. And to be fair, I always wanted to get under 6-minute miles for the marathon, and I did that.
Right.
I did 2:36 and 2:37:18 or something, 6-minute miles. So I was very happy with that, very pleased with that. And so I was almost happy to draw a line under those distances. And at the same time, I was thinking about ultras. I mean, at the same time, I did do a 24-hour in 1987, and I came second, and I did a good. I was second to an international. So I thought, okay, here's something that I could be good at. I had the mentality to be able to run around a 400-meter track for 24 hours, with the only highlight being that every 4 hours you change direction. It's sort of, you do need to be a certain kind of
Yeah.
nutter, one might say, to be able to do that and not go off too fast and not make silly mistakes in the middle of the race and have the pride to be able to push on at the end and try and get a personal best or try and move up to a podium position. So I don't know if I'm answering your question really, John, because I'm rambling on about
No, please, no, it's good. It's
my
interesting.
head.
Please do. Please do.
Yeah. And so yeah, and at the same time, I mean, I can remember thinking, yes, a GB vest, and that was the biggest thing. That was the biggest thought that I had.
Right. Okay.
And once I'd thought that, and I looked obviously at results, I looked at the national championships. I'd done the national championships in '93, and as I say, I was about 10th GB man there, and I thought, okay, and I was similar in the 24-hour championships, and I thought, okay, I'm not quite there. I'm not there, and I've got a lot of work to do to get to the top, 3 or 4 who will be selected in the coming years for the European and World 100K and 24-hour championships. But I can see what I need to do to get there.
Mm.
I've I wasn't a million miles away. Let's put it like that.
Right.
And so from 93 into 94, 94 into 95, I worked really hard to get the results, to get the distances and the times that would put me within, as I say, on the radar of the selectors.
Okay.
Yeah,
So the GB vest was like the North Star. That was your why. That
yeah,
was your thing that kept you going. Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So what, I mean, once you achieve that, where did you go then in your mind? Because obviously, most people know with goal setting, there's always that you achieve something, and there's always that, oh, is that, there's all, I always say there's a little, I remember when I did my first big marathon achievement, I was like, I finished, and it was like, oh, is that it? 'Cause
Yeah,
there was a bit of that, like, because you
yeah.
build it up so much. So what happened after that then?
So I mean, I carried on. I thought, oh, it'd be nice to get another GB vest, and it never happened. Partly because the next year we had our first child,
Okay.
so that obviously complicates your
Yes.
lifestyle.
Yes.
Um, and I got the odd injury, and just things conspire. You think, oh, I can move on from here. Like when I did the 111.5, I thought, oh, yeah, it's a bit more training. I'll get under 110, and it doesn't happen. You look back now from 40 years on, well, 30 years on, and you think, yeah, well, okay. And as time has gone on, I've looked back with more and more satisfaction and no regrets. There were races that I would have liked to have done. There was the odd race where I was injured and had to pull out. Very, very rare race that I had to pull out of. I could have won the odd extra national medal and that sort of thing. But actually, I was very lucky in that I'd achieved really all I wanted to. And so when we started to have kids, and we had the son in 97 and my daughter in 2000. And then running changed for me. It moved into a more of a recreational rather than a real professional, serious. So I started to do all the races that I hadn't done that I wanted to do. So there were races around the country. I mean, I can remember doing the Merthyr Mawr 10K. I'd always wanted to do that. I'd been down to Merthyr Mawr and run up and down the sand dunes made famous by British Miners Club's training camps, and Steve Ovett trained there and all that sort of thing. And I'd always wanted to do the 10K, which starts up the Big Dipper. So iconic races like that, which didn't really kind of matter, but I wanted to do them to sort of tick them off. Really, they were on my bucket list, as people
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you would have been, just from what you told me. So so when your daughter was born, you said 2000. So you would have been sort of early 40s at that point.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what did that? So how did you adjust then, sort of post 40 to? How did running? Because obviously, I'm going to fragment this into two questions. So that's the first question: how did you change? But also, I'm assuming that a lot of the marathons and like the park and all this stuff would have come after 40, after that age. I'm assuming.
Well, certainly, obviously, the parkruns did because they only started in 2004. I started
Yeah.
doing parkruns in 2007. The marathons, I mean, I've in each marathon that I've done, I've tried to do my best. I've not
Okay.
been one of these people who's done, a marathon every week just to get the numbers up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there came a point. I did my 100th marathon in 2000 and God, 3.
Okay. So it was quite a while ago. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
2003. And
Good.
I mean, yes, it was on my radar. It was a target, but I'd done 1995. So yeah, I'd done my personal best at the Abingdon Marathon, and I'd done my vets
Oh yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And I thought it'd be nice to do my 100th there. So I did my 99th in the New Forest Marathon, and I
Yeah.
did my 100th in Abingdon in 2003. But it wasn't that I'd done 30 that year to get within a range of 100. I'd done, as I say, I'd done quite a few before.
Yeah.
Well, see,
Yeah.
yeah, 90 odd.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What were the highlights marathons wise? So what of the 100? Obviously the personal best you mentioned in Abingdon, which is
yeah,
yeah. So I've not done that one, but I've heard it's a good one to if you're
it is.
after a PB. So what were the highlights of your marathons?
I've done all the marathon majors. So, I mean, I've done London 10 times. I'm from London, so I love the London Marathon. I've
Yeah.
done it 10 times. Did the first one, 1981. That was great because that was my first sub 3 hour marathon. Um, and yeah, so I love New York. Did the 100th Boston in 96. did Chicago, did Berlin. Actually, last year, I took my daughter to Berlin, and she ran the marathon.
Brilliant.
So that was nice. Just the 41 years after I had done it. So yeah, that was nice. Um, I mean, I think in terms of marathons, I did the Swiss Alpine Marathon, which is actually 78K, which is absolutely fantastically scenic. Um, this was in 2008, so I was past my best, John,
Yeah.
at that
Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
and I was flirting with the cutoffs, shall we say?
Right.
And yeah, the Swiss are very strict about their cutoffs. So yeah, and I was convinced. I mean, I've never spent so much of a race convinced I wasn't going to finish, because I was sort of, oh, I thought for the first 30K, which was downhill, that I'd make up time, and I didn't. I was only like 2 minutes inside the cutoff when I got to 30K, and I was like 4 minutes, 5 minutes inside. It was only when I got um up to the top of the mountain, basically with about 20K to run down back into Davos, that I thought, okay, I think I can do this now.
Mm.
But it was a guy behind me. He missed the cutoff by 20 seconds, and they said, right. I mean, he'd run 42K by this point, so he was more than halfway round the 78K, and he was like 20, 25 seconds outside the cutoff, and the marshal said, right, on the bus back to Davos. So he didn't finish the race, and I thought that was going to happen to me.
Right.
So that was a highlight. I mean, it wasn't a highlight for the first 2/3 of it, because I thought I wasn't going to finish, but the run back down into Davos was great, knowing I was going to do it,
Mm.
uh,
Mm.
and a very different sort of performance from the ones I've been used to squeezing out of myself
Yeah.
10 and 20 years previously.
Yeah. So when was your last marathon? The last one you did?
That's a very good question. So my last marathon was, I did Chicago in 2011,
Mm.
because I thought I will complete the marathon majors as they were at the time. I haven't
Yes.
done Tokyo or Sydney or whatever else is on the cards. I did do. Have you heard of the Tanner's Hatch Marathon? It's a long distance Walkers Association marathon, which is it's off road. I did the winter version of that a few years ago now, which you can't. I don't know whether you would call it a marathon or not. I sort of say, okay, that's my 123rd, and 123 sounds to me, sounds a reasonable number to stop at.
Right.
I'm not capable of doing 26 miles under any means, apart from in a car now. So
Right. So I was going to ask that actually. So no, let's go back to the parkrun. So you've obviously
yeah,
done the 500 parkruns.
yeah.
Um, so what made you, apart from obviously it's a very popular thing. It's a bit. I want to make this because not everyone. I mean, I don't do parkruns, but it's what got you into that? What made you think, right, that's something I want to do?
Um, I mean, I saw it in 2007, and it just. I mean, I've said this to Paul Sinton Hewitt, actually, who obviously is the founder of Parkrun, because he came along to the first Alice Holt Parkrun, which is my home parkrun. Um, it Parkrun came along at exactly the right time in my running life,
Okay.
because parkrun is all about quantity, not quality. So
Mhm.
that the people who are celebrated are not the people who finish first; they're the people with the 50, 100, 250 and 500 t-shirts on their backs, which fits right in with me. And I've just been very proud to pile up the park runs, and no matter whether they've been fast or slow, over the last, nearly 20 years now. I mean, I have, I'll go back to, so because of various injuries and all sorts of things, I lost a lot of fitness after Chicago, actually, after 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014. Excuse me. And yeah, it was actually my daughter. She came to stay with me, and she ran around the field at the back of the house here, and I wasn't running at the time. I was just sort of crawling around park runs. And I thought when she'd done that, I could do that. And it changed my life. I went out and I ran around the field. And the next day I ran around it twice. And then I thought, I don't need that bag of crisps. I don't need that cake. I don't need that
Right.
pint of beer, I'll be more healthy. And it started on a virtuous circle. I've been in a vicious circle of doing less and less exercise, getting and putting on the odd pound, and then being able to do less. But that switched it around, and I was able then to gradually reduce my parkrun personal bests, and
No.
that was a big contributing factor because it was every week. I think, right, I'll go to Alice Holt and I'll try and, knock another 20, 30 seconds off. I'll go to Frimley and try and do that. I'll go to, Winchester or wherever, because obviously there are so many park runs within reach, which is great. And the motivating factor of trying to do a personal best each week was crucial um, in my, gradually getting fitter, gradually getting slimmer, and that carried on. That has carried on, did carry on for 10 years until various other medical problems intervened. So, yeah,
Mm. And you're 68 now, Steve, is that right?
I am. I am.
What does your running, apart from Siphon Park, and what does your weekly running schedule look like now?
Well, what I try and do is I go to the gym on a Monday, run on a Tuesday, gym Wednesday, run on a Thursday, have Friday off, do parkrun on a Saturday, and then depending on what's going on, I will try and do something on a Sunday as well.
Right.
Now, that's the ideal, but that often doesn't happen
Yeah.
for various reasons.
Yeah. And do you run solo as a club?
I run solo because there are very few people as slow as me now.
Right.
It used to be the fact that there were very few people as fast as me.
Right.
Or, I don't know why, but my colleagues in Basingstoke and Midhand AC didn't want to go out on a Saturday morning and run 50 miles. I don't understand it really.
No.
They didn't. So I did. To be fair, I went down to Basingstoke track, and a lot of the speed work I did was in a group.
Right.
Yeah. So that was great. But the long
Mhm.
runs, because they were longer than the average marathon runner's long run, I did by myself. Yeah, but now I'm I just run on my own. I was running around King's Pond in Alton the other day, and a bloke was sitting on a bench, and he said, "You'll have to go faster than that to outrun the Grim Reaper," which was nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, nice bit of motivation there to remind us all, yes, that we are finite. So,
Yeah.
okay, brilliant. Thank you for that. So, talk to me about the book then, Steve.
The book, yeah. For a long time, I didn't think I was worth a book. So I'm not Mo Farah. I'm not, Paula Radcliffe. I haven't won, Olympic medals and all that sort of stuff. And I thought, who would want to read my thoughts on running? But a lot of my friends said to me, well, we want to, and actually a lot of people do. And I've written columns in, Athletics Weekly and Runner's World and then local newspaper and that sort of thing. And a lot of people have seemed to like what I write. And increasingly, people said, "No, you ought to write because you've done so much." And to be fair to myself, in all due immodesty, what you just said, the GB vest, the national medals, the 100 marathons, the 500 park runs, the Centurion. Not many people have done that range of stuff. Not many people. Well, I don't think anybody. I can think of one or two who possibly have done all of that. And I actually think for the if I can say ordinary runner. Sorry to any listener who's offended by that, but I've got more in common with you than Mo Farah or Paula Radcliffe because I've done all I've done whilst, holding down the full-time job, bringing up a family with all of the other responsibilities that we all have. So I've had to fit in the 50-mile runs in between, changing nappies and things. So the run of life, I happen to have a copy here, obviously,
Of
is really my thoughts, and it tells my journey that I've tried to summarize for you today about I wasn't any good at school, I didn't have any talent, but I saw that North Star of the GB vest and I thought, how can I get there? And it talks about setting a target and everything. So yes, it's my story, but it's also the story of hundreds of other runners, from people you've heard of to people you haven't. So my friends who have wanted to run the London Marathon or just do a park run without walking, whatever it might be, through to, I've coached a couple of international runners, and obviously there are stories about Steve Ovett, Paula Radcliffe, all sorts of people that you will have heard of. And it's just pulling them all together and putting it out there to give runners of all abilities who just want to get a little bit better ideas about what they can do in their running life. But mostly the stories are inspiration. Mostly they are, oh God, that's a really great story about Steve Ovett or Seb Coe or whatever. Yeah, that's given me the inspiration to go out and run.
Mm.
That's what it is trying to do. And it's been out for a couple of years. I've had a lot of very good feedback. A lot of people actually have said to me, I read your book and it's great. And in my last marathon, I got to 22 miles and I really wanted to stop and walk, but I heard your voice in my head saying you're only in the pain box for a short length of time, so just keep the faith, push on, and go for it. And they said, and I did, and I got a personal best, and that's great. I mean, I'm never going to submit another personal best, but if I can help someone else do it, that's fantastic satisfaction for me. And that's been one of the reasons why actually very recently I've recorded the audiobook version of The Run of Life. So people can actually, you poor things, hear my voice, hear 6.5 hours of me going on about running. But I think the audiobook, I think for runners, I think, I like to hear, the passion in other people's voices when they talk about whatever turns on. It might be running, it might be something completely different. And I think the audiobook is me talking passionately about something I've done for 55 years, that I believe in, that I have a lot of thoughts and ideas about, and that I hope provide inspiration, as I say, for runners of all standards who just want to maybe, push on a little bit and get to the next level.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. So if you could extract then some principles from that book, just as a bit of a taster for just, for everybody really, from the person that is just starting out to the person that's like doing what you're trying to do, to the person that perhaps wants to push it a little bit further, what sort of key principles would you extract from that, Steve, that you could share with your listeners today?
Yeah. It's very good. I say in the book, I can't give everybody a schedule. I think having a target is the biggest thing. Over and over again, I've said to people, if you get the target, if you get the right target, the target that is really compelling, then that'll take you an awful long way.
Yeah.
Once you've got the target, then obviously you've got a plan. Okay, I want to do that, and it might be a 2:30 marathon, it might be sub 2 hour half marathon, it might be, as I say, running a mile without walking, it might doing a park run without walking. It could be anything. Once you've got that, make sure it does turn on that light bulb in your head. Make sure it is compelling enough for you to do the work to get there. You've got to be able to think, okay, if I could just achieve that, wow, I'd be really happy. Or, my kids would be impressed, or something. No matter where you get your inspiration from. And then you plan, you think, okay, what are the sensible, intelligent steps I've got to do? What is the training? What are the runs I've got to do? And that's really common sense. There's a lot about it in the book. There's a lot about the mix of stuff that you can do depending on the level you're at. Obviously, if you're starting out, it's sort of, doing a bit of running and walking maybe every other day, and seeing where that gets you and how fast you can progress with that. At the other end of the scale, it's the mixture of, running twice a day, doing speed work on a Tuesday night, hill work on a Thursday night, long run on a weekend. It's and woven into that is the hard, easy principle of, okay. I can remember talking to an international, and he was top 3 in the country, but he was training too hard. I looked at he'd reached a plateau, and he came to see me, and he said, I don't know what's going wrong. But he was running a huge long run on a Sunday. He was doing 2 10-mile runs on a Monday, and then doing some horrendous speed work on a Tuesday. And I said, mate, you're just doing too much. You've got to tone down that Monday. Okay, do your do your long run on a Sunday. Maybe move the speed work to a Wednesday, because your body needs to recover. Your body needs to absorb all that lovely good work that you're doing. You're
Yeah.
piling into it. But if you run 40 miles on a Sunday, do 2 10-mile runs on a Monday, and then try and do speed work on a Tuesday night, you're going to break down, which is what he was doing. So, I mean, he took my advice, and 6 months later, he was national champion, and he'd done a PB. So, and that was a 5-minute conversation almost. I mean, I
Yeah.
didn't do much. It was just common sense. It was just someone else looking in, a third
Yeah.
party looking in and saying, "Yeah, Dan, it's obvious, mate." But he couldn't see that. He was intent on doing as much as he could every day.
Yeah.
So yeah, the basic principle: get a target, do the planning, accept that you've got to do hard, easy, hard, easy, hard, easy. Any niggles, I think, address them, particularly, older runners. I know, I mean, you've got to address any niggles, any any small issues as soon as you can before they get big. And then when you come to near the target, you've got to have the faith to be able to to taper properly. So many people get to the last week before a marathon and they do too much, or they make
Yeah.
do other things. I mean, there's classic examples of, oh, I feel so good because I'm only running, a third of what I normally run. I'm going to clear out the garage. I'm going to move everything around in the loft. And of course, that wrecks their body and wrecks their marathon.
Absolutely.
So,
I think, yeah, I've always said the worst thing in tapering, as you mentioned, that he's doing too much. He's not doing too little, it's doing too much. That's what always gets people. Or they try and make up for stuff they've lost, which is the worst one. Well, I'm going to make up for some lost runs in tapering. It's like,
yeah,
nah, it's like an exam, isn't it? If you're not ready, then you're not going to be ready, are you really?
no, absolutely. Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, brilliant. So, a couple of final questions from me, which I always ask. So, I suppose a lot of people that listen to this are perhaps I'll say the first time marathon runner, or somebody that's trying to do something that's perhaps they believe at the moment is perhaps beyond them. Or so there's two types of people, I think. There's the person that's looking to do the first marathon, which is a big jump, and then there's the person looking to do their first run, which is a big jump. And I think actually probably the first run's a bigger jump than the first marathon because you've got less experience. So that person that's got those doubts, that person that's starting out, that person that's, looking to get started, like you got started all those years ago, what would you say to them, Steve?
I mean, that's a very good question, and I can answer it in a number of ways. I mean, running isn't for everybody. Enough, and I mean, lots of people do run, and going back, to COVID, loads of people, even more people ran. But it's not for everybody. A lot of people say to me, I hate running. And I say, well, don't run then. Do, play football, play tennis, or do something like that. I don't understand people who don't like running. Obviously, it's just not something I can't comprehend. But so yeah, running isn't for everybody. But I think if you want to start, I think get a plan. I think well. I suppose there are a couple of things. Keep a log. I think that's hugely important, because I think the first few weeks can be dispiriting, can be just a slog. But if you keep a log, okay, I went out on a Monday and I did, 1 minute jog, 1 minute walk times 5. Great. Write it in the log. Rested on Tuesday. Went out on Wednesday, did dinner, write it in the log. Because then when you come to the third week, when you really don't want to go out, and I don't know, it might be raining or whatever. If you look back and you think, well, actually, I've done 6 runs in the last 2 weeks. I don't want all of that to count for nothing. I know how hard. I know it was hard, but I went out and did it. So okay, I will go out tonight and do my run. So I think a log is crucial. I think, playing games with yourself, like if you really don't, and a lot of people say this, if you really don't feel like running, walk 5 minutes down the road, walk 10 minutes down the road, and if you still don't feel like running, okay, come back. But most of the time, that turns into a run. That turns into something that actually you can, be proud of and put in the log too. So there's that deal that you need to make with yourself. I think another good tactic is to find a friend who's doing something similar, and at least once a week try and meet up with them.
Yeah.
Because obviously, if you if you're going to let them down by not doing the session, or you're more likely to do the session if you'll be letting them down if you don't do it.
Mm.
So having a friend, every Tuesday night you're going to go out and you're going to do your walk and run or jog and walk session, if they're roughly the same stage as you, that's always good. I think having a weekly shape in that way is very important. So okay, rest on Monday, okay, I'm gonna run with Fred on Tuesday night, rest on Wednesday, gonna run on my own on Thursday, I'm gonna do parkrun on Saturday, and then I'm gonna have a long walk on Sunday, or something like that. If you've got a shape, you're more likely to do it. And as I say, if you can write that down, even put it on the wall, put a big old wall chart and think, okay, look, I've done that and that and that and that and that, and that gives you the motivation. And as I say, if you think, oh, I don't want to stop now because all that will be for nothing, and I'll
Yeah.
have to start again, or I'll never do it.
Yeah.
Um, does that answer your question?
It does answer my question. Yeah, it does answer my question. And then the final question that I like to ask everybody, which is my philosophical question, is how has running changed you, Steve?
Oof. Right. I mean, it's given me far more self-confidence.
Mm.
Um, I'm very proud of what I've done over so many years. I mean, so I'm all the stuff, the Centurion, the 100 marathons, the GB vest, all that sort of thing. That makes me very proud indeed, and it's something that I mean, there's a bit in the book about Roger Bannister when he had done the first 4 minute mile. That evening, he just sat there, and his companions couldn't believe how quiet he was. But he said he knew that would keep him happy for the rest of his life, basically. And I feel the same about the GB vest. I feel once I got that, it's like being president of the United States. You're always president, unfortunately, the one we've got at the moment. They're always called, Mr. President. So, and you're always a GB international.
Right.
You never lose that. And in fact, it's a rule that if you're not running for your club, you can wear your GB vest in races.
Yeah.
So and that's nice, and that's so it's something that is warming, if you like, inside me. Gives me a lot of satisfaction. It's yeah, and it's sort of it's running. Running is a bit like life. Well, I suppose that's why I call the thing the run of life. The book, The Run of Life. It so many things about life you can look at through the prism of running, of the principles of running, of work hard and you'll get the results, and all the sort of things. So I think that there's all of that, and it's given me quite apart from the satisfaction, the pride that I have in looking back over those accomplishments, and just keeping going for 55 years of running. Um, it's also enabled me to write, in that I've found a niche where I feel very confident in writing, and a lot of people, enjoy reading when I write, and that gives me a lot of pleasure too, because I think, okay, I've put a lot into running. Running has given me a lot, and if I can help other people a lot, in their journey along the road, then that's great, and that gives me a lot of satisfaction now. So anybody who says, I read your book and that helped me get that marathon PB, that's fantastic. That's like giving me a gold medal. That's great.
Yeah.
So if I can pass on any of the wisdom that you've heard this morning, and that I've obviously accrued through the pain of 135,000 miles, then I'm happy to pass on anything that I have learned.
Thank you very much for passing it on. We appreciate it very much. Thank you. Anything else you'd like to add, Steve?
Um, yeah, I mean, I mentioned before that I've had a couple of health issues. So, any park runner I may have seen a blog that I wrote and that Parkrun UK put on their website. I had lymphoma 2 years ago.
Okay.
So I had chemotherapy on a Friday, and thought, should I do parkrun on the Saturday? And I did. And to a certain extent, parkrun carried me through those 18 weeks of chemotherapy and the stem cell autograft that went afterwards, I felt it was so important that my life wasn't just about cancer, that cancer did not define me, and that if each week, even though I was walking around at the back, or the good weeks I was, doing a bit of jogging too, if I could, okay, I've done one more park run. That is an achievement. That means that week hasn't been just about the needle stuck in my arm and feeling crap and not being able to eat anything and all the stuff that goes with cancer. And the consultant said, your fitness to start with and your positive mental attitude in terms of park run and other things stood you in very good stead, and meant that the outcome that we saw was, and still is, touch wood, very positive.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And that's a fantastic story. So where's the best place for people to find you online, Steve, or anywhere for that matter?
There's my website, so therunoflife.com.
Yep.
We'll tell you all about me, obviously, and about the book. And you can sign up for a weekly newsletter,
Right.
which is coming out in 14 minutes time.
Okay.
A weekly, it's a very short 2-minute read. It's something from the past, so a little bit of something I remember from running in the past, something that's happening in the present, and then a future suggestion for this week's. It's about how to make your long runs leading up to your spring marathon more productive. So yeah, you can sign up. It's free, and it comes out every week, and it's
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. I'll also pop the link for Steve's book, The Run of Life, in the description as well, if you want to check that out. I'll definitely be checking out the audio version because I'm an Audible person myself, so I do like my Audible, so I'll definitely do that. So, Steve, I'd just like to say thank you for your time and your openness and your honesty. It's a fantastic story. Hopefully you can, you've inspired a few people, and we can continue to inspire a few more people along the way if they subscribe to your newsletter and check your book out as well, because I think it's a great story. And particularly, I love if I may, the two halves of the story. It's the, yes, okay, I was doing some quite, significantly, good athletic achievements in my early life, but actually, I think the later stuff as well, like you've just said about the parkrun after the chemo, is just as inspiring as that. So it's a really, really good balance, and I appreciate that. And you've been very generous with your time. So thank you very much. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening. As always, if you're new to this podcast, please feel free to subscribe wherever you get your podcast from, Apple or Spotify. If you want to drop me a comment or a review on Spotify, particularly, that really helps me out. So I appreciate those are the reviews. That helps me, and please share it with your friends. If you hop over to Instagram at 12 Months to Marathon, as usual, you can follow me over there for your daily content and tips. And if you go to the link in my bio, you can join my free online running community there. I'll let you in, where we can take you away from the noise of social media, and you can connect with other runners over 35, and we can share experiences as well. So thanks again, Steve. I appreciate your time today, and thanks everybody for listening, and I'll speak to you all again very soon indeed.